Welcome to Evolving Waves, where we ride the tides of adversity to reach the shores of success. My name's Alan Thompson, and I welcome you to episode 7. Hey, did you know episode 7 puts us in the top 10% of podcasts in the world?
No shit.
Yep.
That's an interesting statistic.
90% of podcasts never make it past 6. So we are now in the top 10%.
Nice.
Bam! Milestone.
Veterans lead the way, baby.
Super excited for our guest today. We've got a great one on for you guys. So Justin Myers, also known as the Pirate Hunter, is a U.S. veteran, Olympic junior bronze medalist, and an overall fascinating dude. He's got some crazy stories. So the unique trajectory of Justin Myers' life chapters have woven together to form the unparalleled substance that positions him as an exceptional and sought-after speaker. He's worked with more than 225,000 clients spanning 13 countries, has worked within the Fortune 500 realm, has a contact list that you wouldn't believe, even if I told you, and numerous other accomplishments. While in the Navy, he was awarded the Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, Sea Service Deployment Ribbons, and multiple others. Welcome, Justin.
Thanks, Al. Thanks for having me on your podcast, bro.
Absolutely. Super excited. Glad that you are the one that we get to celebrate the accomplishment with. I know we've been talking for a couple of weeks before kicking this thing off about getting together. So glad we can make that happen. Before we dive in, quick sponsor highlight. We want to just shout out our sponsors, right? Which is myself. I am the sponsor at Stingray Branding. That's us. So today's broadcast is brought to you by me at Stingray Branding. We're a national lead generation focused marketing agency that helps businesses generate an ROI from their marketing efforts, including web design, social media, Google, email, automations, and more. Find out more about us and this podcast at stingraybranding.com. Cool. Let's dive in, bro. I'm super excited. So to kind of kick us off, let's go ahead and, if you wouldn't mind, just share a little bit about your background, like the steps to the couple chapters, giving us a 30,000 foot view of each kind of stint you've gone through.
Yeah, so 30,000 foot overview, quick synopsis of 37 years of my life. I was born and raised Savannah, moved all over Georgia with my dad running dealerships. Grew up a fighter. I was the only white kid in my school, so I got the shit beat out of me a lot. And then I ended up in Taekwondo with sixth Dan Korean. And his family are all gold medalists. His kids, all three of them, have multiple gold medals in the Olympics. Logan had already had an adult Olympic gold medal when I started training. So him and his sister were the oldest, and that's who me and McLean used to fight, their youngest brother, because he was my age. So they're like 7-8 years older than us, and they're actual Olympic gold medalists. Logan got his first gold medal when he was 16.
Wow.
Against adults, bro. Like that's
crazy.
what I grew up fighting.
Whenever I was watching the Olympics, that like caught my attention a bunch, right? Like it's wild to think that you're out there doing that.
You're the best of the best, man. It's against the whole world. Yeah, right. So that, that family took me in. I grew up with a lot of violence and chaos in the household. So it's part of why I've been able to adapt so well in the military and business. Because if you can't function in chaos, like you won't make it. It's just not going to happen. One of my parts of my keynotes is calm amongst the chaos. Fast forward a little bit, I was a big baseball player in addition to fighting, Taekwondo and boxing. And then we ended up in the Dixie Youth World Series in 2000 out in Texas. We won that. Fast forward through high school, I was an athlete. So school was not my thing. I worked 100 hours a week during school while playing baseball. Like that's all I did was work and play ball. Ended up in the Navy through a lot of different decisions. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Fortunately, I got up to Great Lakes. I did really well. Graduated top of my class. I had picked up my orders. I got my dream orders, and then I lost my dream orders all within the same week. Oh yeah, man. It was my first captain's mass. I went out of Liberty Radius and got stuck in Dulles on the way back and did not make it back to school. So I was AWOL as fuck. I called I called the base CDO. I was like, hey, I'm not gonna make it back in time tomorrow for class. They're like, God, it's cool. What's your leave number? I was like, God, I don't have one of those. And so I got picked up at O'Hare with 2 MAs and cuffed and taken straight to command. Got processed. Yeah, I lost my. The only thing they did, I got half months restriction times 2, half months pay times 2, and they took my orders. I didn't get a busting rank. They just took my orders. But that sucked because I was going to a boat team, and that was like the whole reason I joined the Navy. So I was pissed, man. And that was at that moment I was like, "Fuck this! I'm never gonna let something like that happen and have somebody dictate where the fuck I go in my life." And that's what led me to the USS Ashland and the Amphib Navy. I got to that boat with 13 gunners. They were all E5 and above. They had all struck out a deck department, just a bunch of hard dudes from all over the country. And like day one, I check in with my sea bag and little Grits Mocker. He's our little guy. He's a doctor now. Grits took me down the armory, and guys are all waiting there. And everybody was like, hey, welcome in, you know. As soon as that armory door shut, I got the fucking dog shit beat out of me, bro. Real talk. I mean, they fucked me up, dude. 13 on 1. There's nothing I'm going to do in that, but just keep fighting until I can't, right? And eventually I ended up lights out. And I woke up, they all, pulled me out like, welcome to the Army, motherfucker. Now you're a brother. Which doesn't happen anymore. And I think it should, because it brings a lot of needed respect into the armory and that level of, what we do outside of just maintaining arms, because we still maintain the defense and we handle all the boarding teams, we handle the ranges. So you got to be tough, man. You can't just give up the armory. That was my lesson. Like, it doesn't matter what the numbers are, you fucking fight until you die. And that was my wake up into the Navy.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And my first deployment was 08. Went to we did a lot of the med. We did a big med cruise, a lot of time in Africa. My very first engagement, I was 19 years old in Haifa, Israel. That was my first combat engagement. And that was like a shit show because none of us were armed. We were all out on liberty for day one and eating dinner at this restaurant. And then the whole restaurant starts getting shot up, bros. It was nuts.
That's crazy.
So we all hauled ass back to the boat, armed up, and then we went out kicking doors. It's good. It was a good time afterwards. Once you're armed up, it's much better. But first time getting shot at, you can't return fire. It is not fun. I don't give a fuck who you think you are. It's not fun.
No, that's it's like challenging every part of who you are, like all of your training, because you're trained to grab and
go, bro. Yeah, we all, dude, all of us. It was, we were all like fucking back now, and we ran a mile and a half back to the boat. We got our shit, and we rolled right back out as a team.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was nuts, man. Apparently, it was like their Halloween weekend or something. It was around Easter, because I ended up spending Easter Sunday in Jerusalem that year, which was, for me, just bone chilling. That deployment was pretty heavy. Did a little bit of time in Iraq during that deployment. We had a Marine pop himself. That was a 25 gunner, so we were gunner short. So First Sergeant Shepard pulled me for the boat. We did what we did with 25s, and came back, and it was active. I wasn't there very long. We were in Iraq for like maybe 3 months, right? Just mainly protecting the oil fields because they kept blowing the fucking things up like idiots. Like, it's your own revenue. Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, it was mainly like they did it to that because they knew we were getting the money from it, right? But at the end of the day, like, you're hurting yourself. But the oil fields were big; they were big targets, so they got attacked a lot.
Did y'all deploy for 12 months?
No, we did 8-month tours. It wasn't too bad. So we left in January 08, and we left in January 10. January 10, dude, we weren't even supposed to leave that week, but Haiti happened. And then I always took the last palm leave so my guys could take off. And Yeah, I got a day and a half of palm leave before we got recalled to deploy. I was like, fuck
Jeez.
yeah, dude. I hadn't seen my daughter in like 6 months, dude, and she had just been born. It was, yeah,
That's
and then I
rough.
left like right afterwards. It is what it is. 2010 deployment, we spent a lot of time in Africa, and that's how I ended up with the nickname the Pirate Hunter. Um,
Okay.
that deployment, I had been trained up with SEAL teams for about a year at that point, through different schools that we'd gone through at Blackwater, and we got to the boat and we had our mission. Our whole purpose of that deployment was simply anti-piracy operations. At that time, we were having about 700 hijackings a year, about
Wow.
150 million in ransoms paid, and about 150 bodies for people that got killed innocently. And a big part of my fight for the 2010 deployment was an issue on my '08. Um, my '08 deployment was actually the first time we had permission from the Pentagon to engage on a pirate vessel operating in the area, and my CO would not even allow a warning shot. And the vessel's like 300 yards from our ship, bro. Like, it's
Hmm.
against every no go criteria in my fucking world, and I lost it. So we ended up getting into it on the bridge in front of everybody, um, which obviously is not good for a variety of reasons, right? I learned that now as a leader, right? Sometimes you just need to shut the fuck up and get back in the office, right?
Yeah.
Um, but about 3 hours later, we had taken a distress call in combat, and a French yacht had gotten hijacked, and 17 people died, bro. And
Wow.
I kicked in my fucking CO's door, and I lost my motherfucking mind, because that was your decision after we had full clearance from the Pentagon to do what I do. And 17 people die because you failed to make a decision as a commanding officer with permission to make it. It's not like you didn't have the permission. We'd already been through the safety briefs. Like, we'd already done all this shit.
That's
And
wild.
that changed my whole mindset of being prepared and getting to the next level in my career. So by time 2010 came around, like 2009, I was Sailor of the Year, for the Ashland and the Fibron. So I'd obviously worked my ass off, and I had a great set of gunners that helped me get there, because you cannot get something like that without your team doing what they do.
Hmm.
Um, it was a very pivotal moment for my mindset of what it takes to really master your craft and be a professional. Because in our game, like, if you're a millimeter off, you miss. If you're a millisecond too slow, you get shot.
Yep.
Right? Like, milliseconds and millimeters matter, bro. Like,
Yep.
the fucking end of a bullet does not give a fuck who you are. It will put you out. Period.
Yep.
So the level that we trained, fortunately, was very comforting for me, because I'd grown up fighting and training at that level in a variety of other ways. So for me, it was just a different type of training. I had a lot of fun, man. And April 10th is the day that everything changed around the world with piracy. It was unreal, man. It was 1 year to the day after Captain Phillips, which is Rob O'Neill's birthday, by the way. He was in the
Okay.
Chiefs mess when that shot happened.
Okay.
um, that day, it was about 4:58 in the morning. It was pitch black dark in the middle of the ocean. We're 330 something miles off the coast of Somalia, in the middle of the Indian Ocean, doing our little gator squares, patrolling, and our aft lookout was asleep on watch. Um, yeah. So we ended up with a skiff coming up right behind us, and they got right up alongside, about 100, probably about 150 yards alongside us, and just started popping off shots at us. And I had literally just finished plotting with the quartermaster. I was finishing up my quartermaster of the watch while I was standing my actual watch. And yeah, man, we heard it. It was like somebody fuck around with fireworks right now? Like, because we're in the bridge with the doors down, dog down, right? And I looked at our officer deck, Lieutenant Holloway, and I was like, "Ain't no fireworks out here, sir." So he
Yeah, like
goes
you're in the
out.
middle of the sea.
Yeah, it's like this isn't fireworks, bro. We're in combat zone. You knew this. So so he goes off to the starboard bridge wing. I roll out to the port side bridge wing. As soon as I get over, I start taking rounds. I was like, fuck, all right, here we go. I see the target, I see everything. Cone of fire is cone of fire. It tells you exactly where they're shooting at. So I go to roll back in. I had a one of the deck seamen that was on watch was trying to come out. I just stiff armed this kid straight back in, right over the knee knocker. I was like, get the fuck in. I shut the door. I was like, go get the captain now. So the captain, fortunately, he was awake. He hadn't even been in command 12 hours when I took those shots, bro. He was a brand new uh, commander at sea on a platform he didn't even go to school to be in command of because of needs of the Navy swaps at the last second, right? He was a nuclear officer and then ends up in his very first day in command, ends up in a very historical situation that none of us really knew at the time, right? I mean, we're just doing our job. Um, the skiffs, we were probably going about 15 knots. Skiffs probably doing about 20, going back and forth, playing up and down, and all this happens in like a 3-minute span, by the way, right? Like it seems like eternity, but it's like super fast.
That makes
And
sense.
skipper comes out and I've got the target up on my screen. I've because of their distance, you can't lock it with a 25 millimeter because they were too close. Like they would have to be like 700 yards for me to really lock in and let the gyro systems do what they do. I had to do that whole shot by freehand, bro. And I hit a moving target at night with a 25 millimeter in the chest and then one in the leg and blew up the boat with a fuel barrel behind him after I took his leg off.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was 2 shots, 2 kills, took off. The rest of them jumped off the boat in the water, and then we ran a rescue mission. So I was up on the pilot house with the
Yeah, because
armory.
after that, now they
Yeah,
become your.
now they're prisoners, right?
Yep.
So now we have to treat it as humanity, right? There is humanity in war, right? And I get a lot of blowback for not killing all these fucking dudes in the middle of the water, but we're Americans and we're better than that. Like my job isn't to just murder people. My job is to stop the threat and stop people from doing bad things. I'm not just out there to kill people recklessly. So the threat was neutralized. I called ceasefire. There was no reason for me to continue firing. And then my gunner, she came up, Tara, she flew up to the pod house. So the gun mount was right above Tara's rack, which woke her up. And, she hauled ass up to the bridge. The biggest problem in that situation is that I had the keys of the ship while this was going on. So I had these guys actually like done what they should have done and just boarded the boat before firing, would have been a very big security issue because there's no more self defense of the ship other than the one gun in MAC Kaler's office, who we just laid to rest in Arlington in July.
Sorry to hear that.
It's cost of freedom, bro. It's not free.
Mm-hmm.
TBIs are no joke, and it's a long term thing. And he just had a really bad seizure from his TBI, and it was the last one. But anyhow, back to the situation. Once that all happened, we had to create a rescue mission, right? So now I'm out with the boarding team, run back down to the armory. We get everybody geared up, and we hit the small boat, hit the water, and then we take off to the skiff and where everybody was. We took 3 boats out actually. Usually we run 2. We run a 7-meter and an 11-meter ribs, but we actually put the PL out as well because the PL boat is a lot easier to transport people on. It's just a flat bottom boat. We brought these guys back up. pulled him out of the water, which was pretty fucking gnarly for people that have been burned real bad, and then sitting in salt water. So like shit just comes off skin. It's pretty gnarly,
That's
bro.
crazy.
Get these guys back up to the ship. I mean, obviously they're Somali pirates. They're super skinny, malnourished. Just rough, bro. They have a miserable life, and yeah, we got them on the boat. Our medical team is a very large part of us being able to actually go to trial. A couple of these dudes were in shock. The guy that I took his leg off, we call him Stumpy. Um, he was like literally like seconds from dying out, and we had a corpsman, Katie Lutterby, that came and took over on him, and she kept him alive long enough for him to get medevaced, and he ended up with his whole leg completely amputated above the knee.
Wow.
Uh, but
But you
that,
lived through that.
yeah, I did live through that, which was really interesting. We ended up through trials all the way through the Supreme Court for 7 years. So I had to go testify in front of all these guys in Supreme Court. It started in Norfolk, it finished in Norfolk at their Supreme Court, but it was a long process. But eventually, we got the first conviction of pirates in 150 years, which is part of what made my reputation. It was all over global news for years.
Oh wow.
A lot of naval policies changed with that incident. I helped rewrite some of that because of those situations. Watch standing watch bills, stuff like that. I created a lot of different training scenarios for the Navy from that event, so that gunners could truly properly train for that kind of event specifically. Um, and those things are still being used today. Booz Allen Hamilton, they're a big training part of the Navy. They provide a lot of stuff that my old CO has helped put in place there because he's part of their organization now. It was a hell of a learning experience, bro. I mean, I was 22 years old, I think. I was an E4 at the time. I was the work center supervisor of my division. But I was still young. But 4 years of training, right? When you
Mm-hmm.
just trained every single day, right? You when you get into that level of combat and stress, you resort to your training. It's all instinct, and if your training is not where it needs to be, you don't win, bro. That's the importance of training, and it's not, and that carries out into civilian world
Oh,
heavily.
100%. I mean, you know, your training is everything. I think that's been one of the huge lessons that I've learned over the last probably like 2 years or so has been your ability to train people and not just train, but create a foolproof system, right? It's funny because we always called it idiot proof, right? Army proof.
I
You
call it
know,
marine proof.
it's like point the arrow this way, on the rocket launcher and stuff. Like, oh, okay, cool, makes sense. Um, you start managing people, and you start realizing very quickly that there was a reason that the army had things laid out the way that they did. I mean, it has to be that well trained, like
Yeah,
that well documented, that well explained to prevent potential issues.
exactly. It's big with the Navy. The the really cool part about the Navy against other services is our job diversity. Because when you're at sea, there's nobody that comes and save you, bro. So you're a firefighter, you're a plumber, you're whatever the fuck we need. If you need to be a corpsman, you're a corpsman, right? Like, does not matter. You have to be able to handle whatever may come because we are all we have, right?
That's a good
So
point.
we get a lot of cross training, and because of that, I ended up on all the training teams to train everybody, um, which helped my career significantly because you can't train people unless you know stuff, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
can't help people unless you truly understand them, their personality, how they're going to learn. And the Navy does a good job of developing us to be able to do those things, which I attribute a lot of my success in the business world to the Navy and what it taught me in the 6.5 years before I got medically retired.
Yeah, so let's kind of dive into that a little bit, right? So you get out of the Navy and you go into owning Sons of Veterans, right? Starting
Well,
that.
not quite, not quite. So I got
Okay.
out the Navy. I was medically retired April of 13. That was my EAOS. I was in a wheelchair. So I was
Wow.
actually taking Liberty University classes online. And then that fall, I transferred to Charleston Southern. And then
Okay.
I moved here in December of 13 back home for good. Um, Once I got down here, I was in school. I was actually in Entrepreneurship 101 with Dr. Maxwell Rollins at CSU. And I learned so much from that man and a handful of books that he gave me. Because we had conversations. I made more money than most professors while I was in school because I was selling cars at Toyota.
Okay.
And I was making money at Toyota. I was about 180 a year.
Nice.
I sold about 40 cars a month every month.
Wow.
And yeah, it was good at what it did, right? And it's
Yeah.
Toyota. It's easy. It's the easiest fucking sell in the world. It's like they don't break. They're cheap. It's
Yeah.
99% of millionaires have Toyotas, right? Real talk, because it's just a liability. You don't spend money on liabilities.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I was really good at that, and I ended up selling a car to the CEO of the Sign Chef.
Okay.
And
Yep.
that's how I ended up in the sign industry. This guy was like, "Look, I need a new sales director." I was like, "Well, I don't know anything about signs and all that stuff. Like, I can tell you everything there is to a Toyota. I'm a master certified Toyota specialist, but I can't tell you anything about signs." He's like, "I don't need you to know signs. I need you to do what you do and teach my people how you do what you do." And I was like, "All right, well, we'll talk." So we ended up talking. I took a huge pay cut, bro. Oh my god, that was hard to swallow. It was like a 120-year pay cut, hard to
Oh
swallow.
man.
But it was new. I was new to something. It was a 60,000 salary. This shit, right? Um, what I will say in that respect to people that do listen to this is, do not pass up an opportunity just over money, because some things are better than money. And with that, we can go into where this kind of led. I took this company, and they were just over, like literally just over $1 million a year, and within 3 years, I had them over $8 million a year. We had 225,000 clients in 13 countries, and I closed almost all the Fortune 500. Gary Vaynerchuk, Grant Cardone's one of my clients, Tim Story, and all that. I mean, if you know companies and CEOs, Washington Post, we did the Eugene Meyer Awards for Bezos and the Washington Post. I mean, I do all
Wow.
the Amazon stuff, Exxon, T-Mobile, you name them, bro. We did it.
That's crazy. Right here, out of
Right
this
here out of Charleston, bro.
man. I would have. I pass by that shop all the time.
That
Yeah.
little, yeah. Nobody knows
But
what we do at that little sign shop. And we've got, there's probably about $1 million in equipment in there, and do we make signs all over the world, which ultimately led to my divorce, because you can't work 110 hours a week and then maintain a marriage. That's impossible. You can't work with your spouse on top of that. That's a terrible idea.
yes, yes, it is.
There's ways to do that where it's not like 24/7 involved, right?
There are a few couples that are capable of doing it. Elena Cardone
Yep,
has a whole book on it.
yep, she does.
They're one of the few and the proud that are capable of pulling that kind of stuff off.
She actually talked to my wife, my ex-wife, while we were on a podcast, because Elise was in the other side of the office. She was like, "Bring Elise over. I want to talk to her." I was like, "All right." And they talked, and then next year I was divorced, but it is what it is.
Jeez.
Um, but that, I mean, all that stuff led to me being able to do really big things. That company put me on the map. I started getting recognized in the industry. I got a lot of awards. And in December of 17, like, I realized after 3 years, like, I can do this with the veteran community and like actually get paid way better than what I'm getting paid right now because I know how much money we're bringing in. Like I'm the VP of the
Mm-hmm.
company at this point. I'm no longer the sales director. Like I've grown. I was like, you know what? I'm out. So I resigned. My ex-wife hit me with a divorce that afternoon. Um, I went absolutely nuts, to be quite honest. Yeah, I drove up to the mountains, and if you guys, people that know me, know that when I go to the mountains, everybody should really be fucking worried because there's really
It's
no
a getaway
telling what
place.
may. I do crazy shit, bro. Like, and part of this stuff is like survivalist stuff, right? So, like,
Mm-hmm.
you can't replace combat. It's impossible, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you can't replace that level of performance. But what you can do is put yourself in situations that make you perform to those levels without the same exact stress levels, right? So now, mind you, it's December 18th of 2017. I go up to the mountains, like fucking 2 degrees up there. On the way up into the mountain, I stop. There's this little like breakfast spot, diner, and sheriff's always in there. So I went up in there, talked to sheriffs. Look, I'm going up the mountains, doing this for 3 days. You guys don't find me, don't hear me. Come look. And he was like, dude, ain't nobody going up that mountain for like 6 weeks, bro. So whatever you do is on you. And I was like, all right, cool. So I went up the mountain, man, and did my thing. And I was up there for about a day and a half, and then this girl got stuck halfway up the mountain coming up. My car was actually stuck on the side of the mountain. My Lexus only got like 3/4 of the way up before I ended up on the side.
Jeez.
Yeah, so stupid, bro. So dumb. Uh, this girl came up. I talk to her every Christmas, man, to this day. She drove up in this little Toyota RAV4. Her family was in there from vacation. She was just trying to get away for a little hike, and she gets stuck, right? And dude, it's steep and ice is scary, bro. And especially in a
Mm-hmm.
car and you're 15,000 feet, it's a long way down off the side of the mountain, bro.
Yep.
So she's like stopped and she's hysterical, bro. And I'm like, listen, sweetheart, it's okay, right? I'm gonna get you down safely. You're not getting shot at. You're not getting blown up. It's just a little ice on a mountain. We'll make it work. And she's like, how are you so calm? It's like, you have no idea what I've lived through to remain this calm because you can't solve anything if you're not calm, focused, and deliberate on what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're,
If you're operating from a point of chaos, you can't think.
yeah, you're
You
operating out of
can't.
desperation, and
Mm-hmm.
that is dangerous,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is why training and it helps you remain calm because when you are trained at such a level to operate in that chaos, everything is super slow.
Mm-hmm.
And you're so far ahead of the game because you are calm while everybody else is losing their fucking minds,
Mm-hmm.
right? And my combat situation was a prime example of that. Our helmsman, she dropped down crying like a baby, and our bosun of the watch had to take over the helm. While he's trying to give orders to the ship for general quarters and get everybody where they're supposed to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to your training.
Yeah, I mean, even going to like basic training, and not even getting into the combat side. I mean, on the army side, I mean, they would, you're on the range and they're like, they're screaming at you constantly while you're up and down the range, or they do like a Normandy reenactment as your final day of graduation, and you're like having a low crawl up this beach while they're shooting like live rounds, 6 inches above your heads, and you look up and you're like, damn, the only thing between me and getting shot in the head is the barbed wire that's telling me to not stand up. Oh, okay. And you start realizing, like, okay, so, it's funny. I would go into like restaurants and stuff for work in the first couple of years while I was running the business. And it's like, people would be like, oh, yeah, they'll be running around going crazy. And I'm like, dude, this is nothing. Like, this is easy. Come on, guys.
Exactly. I think veterans have a massive advantage in the marketplace because of our background. Really cool statistical information I found as an employer when I first started Signs by Veterans was the United States military is the largest producer of entrepreneurs on planet Earth.
Hmm.
We produce more entrepreneurs than every other institution in America combined. Think
Wow,
about that. There are 3 million veteran business owners in America right now.
that's wild.
It's 1% of America are veteran entrepreneurs. It's impressive.
That is very impressive.
And that goes back to what the military creates in a culture of development of its people, right? And they really do prepare you for this, just not directly. Does that make sense? Because they're not
Hmm.
educating us, right? Which is part of why I started doing the book drops that I was doing with Operation Care Package. Instead of sending a bunch of geek dunk and bullshit that these guys don't need, I got Jocko Willink on board and Brandon Webb and a bunch of other authors like Sharon Lecter and Grant
Hmm.
Cardone. They all donate books to us every year to send overseas to these guys on active duty so that we can
Hmm.
educate them before they're out because you can't get out without a plan. It's truly a recipe for disaster. And TAPS does not do very good with actually providing you the resources that you need to transition.
Hmm.
Um, the greatest transitional platform in America is actually AmericanDreamU.org, which is ran by Phil Rendazzo out of Vegas, who actually got Grant Cardone into the Pentagon.
Interesting.
Um, Phil has been a huge mentor and friend of mine. We work together a lot. We've done a lot with the veterans over the years. I do a lot of courses with him. But he's also been like a real friend. So, like, when I lost everything, I called him and I was like, look, man, like, this is where I'm at. This is what I need. Like, this is what I'm trying to do. And he's like, look, like, I'm your friend. Quit being a little bitch and go make some more fucking money. And I was like, all right. Like that was his fucking conversation. Like you know how to do this shit, dude. Like
Brandon
you teach these classes.
Brandon Dawson, Cardone's partner, has a similar
Yeah,
story.
I love Brandon. Dude. He's a trip.
Yeah, his story was like, yeah, his buddy Hector. It's like, here's a book to fix your problem. Go read it and stop sitting around here whining. I'm tired of hearing it.
Yeah, yeah. Phil was like, "Look, dude, like you got the skills, dude. You know what to do. Make fucking phone calls and solve the problem." And I was like, "You know what?
Hmm.
You're right." So then I did. Like I acquired a business. I was like, "All right, well, I know how to do this now." But Phil set me up with this guy Steve, who is Alex Hermosi's mentor as well, and that's how I learned acquisition. Um, Alex is
Interesting.
like one of the best acquisition dudes on planet Earth. Period. His mentor is way better. Is who I'm learning from. Uh, which is how I've been able to put this restaurant deal together that I'm working right now because I literally bought a restaurant with $0 of my own money in, fundraised and created partnerships. And now we're on an acquisition street.
Well, so let's kind of reflect back. As from your time in the military and going into business, what would you say has been one of the maybe the biggest assets to your approach to business, or what's some of those things that you have taken from your past and applied to business that you think has significantly um, has been a significant factor in the success that you've had?
A couple things. I think service, understanding that service is the most important thing and people are the most important resources we have. And focusing on solution based selling, right? Like, I should never have to close you hard ever,
Hmm.
right? Real talk. And this is
Yep.
one debate that me and Grant have had before. If you do your job in the sales process, you simply just ask for the credit card and get it.
Yep.
If you don't, then you didn't follow the sales process. You didn't solve a problem somewhere that's preventing you from closing the transaction. And if you focus on creating solutions to problems, the bigger the problem, the bigger the paycheck will follow.
Yep.
uh, and I learned, especially the corporate world, because you can spend time with a small business and deal with really small problems, but you're going to spend the same amount of time if you had dealt with a really big business and a really big problem, right? As crazy as that sounds, small business actually is harder to work with for development than an actual corporation, because corporations
Mm-hmm.
already have so much other stuff ironed out that by the time somebody like me comes in, I already have an overview of your industry, your business, and I can come in and say, all right, well, your side guys are doing this on this product, but you should be at this because of what you're doing on a longevity scale. You know what I mean? And it just goes
Mm-hmm.
into solving their problems. Like a lot of it was the installation side. So my solution was I put a network together of 3,500 contractors around the world, and whatever we needed done, wherever it needed done, it got done. And when you start doing stuff that nobody else is willing to do, your phones will never stop, because everybody will learn you're the dude that does what nobody else would do. And a prime example of that is when I worked with VaynerMedia. I was referred to VaynerMedia. They called me. I did not call VaynerMedia.
Hmm.
They had a 3D sign that they needed for a film that they were doing for a client for a commercial, and they're in New York. There's fucking 200 sign companies around Manhattan alone, bro. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
insane. They could not get anybody in their city to do this job the same day and give it to them tomorrow. Well, Gary, being Gary, starts calling his friends and like, well, who do you got to do this? They said, call Justin. So here I am. It's like 8 o'clock at night on like a Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm in there with my team still, and then the phone rings and I see Boehner, and I'm like, Boehner, what? I answer the phone. I'm like, thank you for calling the side chef. This is Justin. How may I help you? And he's like, hey, you're just the guy I was looking for. I heard that you can make things happen overnight. And I was like, that depends on what it is. Uh, come, through all the call and everything, and we ended up. I did this job at cost because it was Gary, right? I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
trying to make money on it. I wanted the reputation. And that's another thing people aren't willing to do, is they're not willing to take losses and break even on things that have far bigger impact down the road. Um, and they lose a lot of opportunity because of that. I don't say no much, because I have enough resources and network to be able to accomplish just about anything. And if you're willing to do those things, it propels you a lot further down the road with a lot of stuff on the back end, right? And that's how I like to operate, right? Not everything is about money. Money comes and goes, it's very cyclic. You don't keep it, it simply circulates the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can't make decisions based on that. Another
That
major
makes
problem
sense.
I've seen in small business is making today decisions based on today and not on 10 years down the road,
Yep.
right? And that's monumentally bad. And I've watched it close so many small businesses while I consult, because you have you have to have the discipline to make the hard long-term call. It may be best today, but how bad is that decision going to fuck you down the road? Or it may not be the best today, but in 10 years you'll be sitting real pretty from it. You see what I'm saying?
Yep. And then knowing where you want to be, right? Because you can't even make that choice if you haven't sat down and road mapped what you're going to look like in 5 years or 10 years, what you want, and not in. I think people think of that on like a very superficial level, and not on the like, how do you want people to understand your brand? What are the brand pillars that are going to be associated with who you are 10 years from now, right? Like, what are the Disney's known for magic, right? Like what are you going to be known for? What's the the 1 to 3 words that'll describe everything about your customer experience 10 years from now?
Exactly. Branding's important, bro. Branding is way more than just a logo, man. And this is my number one downfall with designers in the industry is everybody's like, oh, logo for $100. Nah, bro. I am not even thinking about making you a brand for less than 10 grand, period. Because it's
Mm-hmm.
not just a logo. And if you don't create your brand properly, you will absolutely crush your own business in the
Yep.
process.
100%.
Yeah, and you know that as a branding expert, right? I mean, you guys got the best branding title in Charleston, being Stingray Branding with the Stingrays hockey team, right? Like,
Yep.
you're a great branding expert. Which is why I've hired you to help me with Signs by Veterans, and
Yep.
I had you guys help me with copywriting and our SEO stuff, which put me at number one locally, and fortunately gave me some visibility, and
Yep.
that steamrolled my business when I did have it.
Yeah. It's so many people just, they don't take the time, right, to sit down and remove themselves from the chaos, take the bigger picture, and really roadmap. And it's crazy, right? Because once you invest that time, your decisions become pretty easy. It's either this falls in line with my roadmap or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Like it's a yes or no thing constantly then, and it's super easy to make that choice.
So the vast majority of entrepreneurs go into entrepreneurship. Typically, they were the number one salesperson or the number one like actual producer person,
Mm-hmm.
and they got fed up and they wanted to create their own business, right? So they're really good at what they do, but they don't know business and branding and all that other stuff, right? And that is where mentorship is probably the most important piece of being successful in anything that you do. Period. I wouldn't have fought the Olympics without mentors. I wouldn't have won a World Series in baseball without mentors. I wouldn't have made naval history without mentors. And I damn sure wouldn't have built an international business without mentors. Period.
It's interesting that you say that because we had another guest, our first guest actually that we had on here, spoke a ton about that. He has a mentor. He pays 6 figures a year to have access to. And that's a matter of typically a handful of minutes in calls that guide him. And his business has grown by 1.5 million per year since he's done it. And um, mentorship is even like looking back, I've had a handful of mentors, but I've never had somebody that's very specific and like they've been in marketing and they've hit these certain pillars that I want, right? And I think that's the next level that I'm going to be targeting for 2025 is to identify who I want as a mentor to continue to grow through, because I've built everything I have on my own, and most of it was through spending money on things that I shouldn't have, and like, oh, that was a bad idea.
Trial and error, baby. That's how you
Yeah.
learn, man. Like we call that. Me and my old business partner Marshall Taryn out of Florida. We call that the cost of tuition because like neither one of us finished school. I dropped out of CSU with after Dr. Rollins, in the middle of Dr. Rollins' class, because he gave me 6 books and was like, "You're already successful. If you read these 6, you don't need college." I was like, "All right." So I did, and then I went and built a fucking business, literally. So like, well, by the time everybody else had graduated out of my class, I had already put up a $5 million business.
Wow. Well, and it's execution, right?
Yeah, it's
And
literally
that's
execution. Like you can't. People get stuck in analysis paralysis and
yep,
strategies and overthinking everything. 80% of something is better than 0% of nothing. Fucking get shit put down and do it, and just make action. The
yep,
number one cure to every problem you have on planet Earth is fucking action,
yep,
which nobody will fucking take. And then they wonder why they are where they are, and they're complaining and bitching and moaning versus going and getting mentors and fixing the fucking problems on themselves.
yep.
Nobody will come save you. Save yourself, get mentors, surround yourself with good people, and life's much easier.
I mean, I couldn't say it better myself. That's like some of the best advice on the planet. It really is,
Just
and it's what defines the successful from the mediocre, right? It's what
100%.
success. It's what defines a millionaire from a thousandaire and a billionaire from a millionaire, right? The billionaire did more shit than the millionaire did
No,
on a better
I'll tell you how the
scale.
billionaire got the billionaire. This I learned this from my mentor, man. It is harder to be a millionaire than it is to be a billionaire. Real talk. And if you can get to a million, the next hardest step is to get to 10 million. But once you hit 10 million, getting to 100 is astronomically fast, like under 2 years fast. That kind of
Wow.
spread. And it's simply just because you have more capital and resource,
That makes
right?
sense.
And then once you do, if you strategically approach the marketplaces, right? So one thing I learned from Kevin Harrington down in St. Petersburg, you don't invest in businesses as an investor. You invest in people because businesses are all systems, processes, and replicatable, especially with a really good mentor, right? That can come in and fix that shit really quick. So you're mostly looking at the person. The biggest key to absorbing the most market share isn't necessarily going into a singular city and dominating that city. It's taking 1% of market share from 50 different cities, and then you have half the market share. That's how these guys get to where they get. It's not anything other than a numbers game to them.
So it's not trying to take 25% of the market share of your city. It's taking 1% of the market share from 50 other cities to combine it.
And now you have a nationwide presence. And as you know from SEO, every single location you get gives you a different boost on that algorithm and your priority.
Yep.
Right. And when you open up 5 locations, like I did with Signs by Veterans, I had 5 different sites for our offices. There was nowhere I wasn't getting leads from in the country because I had every major hotspot covered. Right. And then when you do that and you have those client testimonials and you have the reviews and the pictures and the videos of all the work you did, like I've done. I mean, I built this following over the last couple of years, but I've been working 100-hour weeks my whole life, right? And it's a series of putting out and transparency. I've never hidden anything. I've shared the good, the bad, the ugly. I've shared the PTS moments. I've shared my rucks. I've shared losing ridiculous amount of money in business. I had a semi, not as we had a 53-foot flatbed trailer, and I had probably about 600 grand in fucking channel letter signs and crates on it. And our guy didn't strap it all the way, and I lost a whole load on 95, bro.
Jeez. And then everybody hated you because you were sitting in traffic on 95 too.
In traffic with a fucking crane trying to put everything back on the. Disastrous, bro. Disastrous. And expensive. I mean, I damaged everything. It cost me, 650 grand of fixing shit. It was terrible.
Strap down your loads.
Yeah. If you're driving trailers, man, you cannot double check your straps enough. Trust.
Jeez. All right. Well, as we kind of wrap up, I usually like to ask a final question. What is next for Justin, and what is the top lesson that you are taking into that next adventure that will propel you?
The next venture for me, we just established a restaurant group with my buddy Ross Ward. He's the number 4 all-time winning poker player in South Carolina.
Nice.
Just came back from the World Series of Poker, killed it out there. So we're acquiring a restaurant, and I can't really talk a whole lot about it because I'm still under an NDA right now. But on the 1st of September, you'll know what we just acquired. And my path now is staying in the restaurant side and out of the security side of my life.
Okay.
And getting home for a change and not on the road like I have been for the last 10 years.
I can definitely understand that.
The lessons in this, I'll say, the most important thing I've learned is the importance of the right team and vision. If values do not align, nothing will ever work. Period. You can have an outrageous amount of diversity within your company, but
Mm-hmm.
still everybody hold the same values and culture to win on a singular objection and mission. And if you lose sight of that at any point in the process, you're going to fail. I've watched it for tens of thousands of businesses across America. But I would say your team understand that your number one resource is your people. And if your team is not winning, you're not winning. It doesn't matter how good you do if your team is struggling. And one of my biggest issues with leaders is they're out winning while their team is struggling, right? And they're driving these, Rolls Royces and Lambos, but their teams are driving fucking Hyundais, right?
Yep.
Are you really winning, bro? Are you? Because your team's struggling, they're not living life, you're not winning, right? I
Yep.
want everybody with me to win, bro. I want us to have fun, grow, develop, and nobody should ever retire from me. Like my job is to grow a next leader. And if
Yep.
you retire from me, bro, I failed as a business owner to help you grow to your own dreams because that's my job. I'm an empowerment officer, bro. I don't run all the businesses. I lead my businesses. This is a very big difference.
Huge difference. Yeah, one of the goals that I put on my board for this year, that's one of my long-term vision goals now, is to have 6 millionaires working for me. I
I
want
like
I want
that.
6 people that are all making 6 figures or 7 figures.
I like that. We can do that,
Yeah.
bro. We can do that. We can definitely do that.
Well, as we wrap up today's episode, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a fun time, fun conversation. Remember that in the face of adversity, there is always the potential for growth and success. Join us every other Monday as we continue to explore inspiring stories of overcoming challenges to help you thrive in your journey of life. Peace out.
Appreciate it, bro.
Terrible handshake, right?
It's like